Hello and welcome to WorldCFMMusic. In this video, we're going to go over basic song service bass, lesson number 2. Let's get started. Alright, so welcome back. I hope those of you who want to learn the bass have gotten familiar with the parts of your bass, learned your open note values, and we're going to take it a step further, alright? So, the next step in the bass guitar, something that's very important, is knowing the note values of the bass guitar, alright? And so the cool thing is music is consistent no matter what instrument you are playing, in the sense that everything is identified by a note, alright? And those notes are identified by a letter value, okay? So whether you're on the piano, you're on guitar, you're on a trumpet, you're on a bass guitar, everything falls within the same parameters of these note values, alright? So we're going to go over that first in this particular video. So when it comes to learning and understanding notes, I find it easiest to associate them to a piano because of the way that it flows, alright? So I'll put a diagram here on the screen, and what you can see here is a piano, a picture of a piano. Now it's important to understand that music falls into the letter parameters of A through G, alright? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and the cycle starts over. Now within that, you'll notice that there are also black keys, alright? So we notice that the white keys are the A through G portion, but the black keys, you see little hashtags and small B's. These are called sharps and flats, alright? They still are associated to A through G. It's just an addition of a sharp and a flat mixed in there, alright? And so it's also important to note that you understand pitch, alright? You need to understand pitch. So you have a low pitch, the very bottom, it's a really low note, alright? If I were to slide up, you'll notice that the pitch goes higher. Alright, so it's important to understand higher versus lower, alright? So same thing with the piano. If you move to the right of the piano, the pitch gets higher. If you move to the left, the pitch gets lower, alright? So if I were playing an A note and I were going up to the immediate next key that follows, that's called a half step of movement. If I were to skip the next key that follows, that's called a whole step of movement, alright? Something else that's very important to understand in music, alright? So now you'll notice that, as I mentioned before, we have the A note. If I were to go up, we're going to consider that, if it's a black key, we're going to consider that a sharp, alright? It's identified by using the hashtag symbol, alright? So the A note moving up a half step now becomes an A sharp. If I were to move up to the next note, it's a B, alright? So this is moving up. It's referred to when you're at the in-between points. Those are called sharps. Now if you're moving down and you hit those in-between points, those are called flats, and it looks like a little B, alright? So we're going to tie that to the bass guitar. Now in the last video, I showed you the open note values of each of the strings. The lowest string is E, then followed by A, then it's D, and the very first string is G. Alright, so you want to lock those in. If you haven't, very important to do so before moving into this portion of this video. Alright, so we have our E note, alright? So if I move up a half step, we know that it generally would be an E sharp because we're moving higher. But there's two exceptions to the rule, or to this musical flow, if you will. There are two different places where there is no in-between note, or there's no sharp and flat, if you will. And E is one of those places. Instead of going E to E sharp, you're actually going to go from E to F. Alright, that's one of two places. I'll show you where the other place is in just a moment. So we move up a half step from F, and we're going up, so it's an F sharp. Alright, move up another half step, we're up to a G. Another half step is a G sharp, and another half step is an A. Alright, so some of you might have already recognized that, hey, the next string up as an open string has a note value of A as well. So if I press the 5th fret on the 4th string, pluck that, and then I pluck the next string up as an open string, they sound exactly the same. Alright? So instead of moving all the way up the fretboard and memorizing all those notes, we can actually commit to memory just the first 5 frets worth of notes, but for all 4 strings, all right? Just to kind of simplify things. Now, of course, you can take it a lot further and familiarize yourself with the rest of the fretboard if you want to. But for starters, all we need for right now is to memorize the notes within these first 5 frets using the 4 strings, okay? So, now that we've identified the next open note, the next open string of A, we can move on from there. So we go up a half step. This is A sharp. We go up another half step. This is B. Now this is where the second exception comes into play. Instead of there being a B sharp, there actually isn't. You're going to move from a B to a C. All right, so commit those 2 exceptions to memory. E goes directly to F as a half step of movement. B goes to C as a half step of movement. There's no sharp or flat in between those 2 places, all right? Or those 2 sets of notes. So we have B and then up to a C. So we're continuing to move up a half step, so it's a C sharp, and up to a D. Now you'll notice, hey, the second string, open, is also a D, and they sound the same, all right? So instead of continuing to move up the A string, we'll move to the D, okay? So of course, the second string open has a value of D. Move up a half step, D sharp, then we're back to an E. All right, so you remember this is where one of the exceptions takes place. So there's no E sharp. We're going to go directly to an F, F sharp, and G. All right, so you'll notice the very first string has an open note value of G as well. So we'll play the first string that way as well. So, all right, so we have G, move up a half step, it's G sharp. We move to the A, because the A through G, the notes cycle A through G and it starts over. So we're at A sharp, B, and that second exception kicks in again. No sharp or flat between B and C. So we go from B up to C. And I could keep going. You can pick one string and you can go all the way up and identify all the note values just using one string. In fact, you can cycle through it twice. But you don't have to. You can play everything you need to within these first 5 frets. Now, of course, as you advance in your bass playing, you'll get more familiar with learning the fretboard should you wish to do so, okay? But very critical, very important that you commit to memory your notes, all right? If you need to print out a chart, tape it, thumbtack it to your wall, whatever you want to do, have a note on your phone. Whatever method you use to memorize, you want to memorize the flow of the notes, all right? A sharp, B, C, C sharp, so on and so forth, all right? Commit that to memory. Now, I just went over the sharps, but before I move on, let's go over the flats, okay? Same idea, just different direction of movement. So we've gone higher in pitch, which generally indicates a sharp in movement when you're going to those in-between notes. But if you're going down in pitch and you go to those half-step points, those are identified by a flat, which is identified by the symbol of a small b, all right? So if I were to start, let's say, on this note here, which happens to be the D note, and I were to go down, we'll throw in the flats, all right? So I were to go from a D down a half step, this is a D flat, all right? So you might recognize, hey, wait a second, that was a C sharp just a moment ago. It can be either one depending on the movement, all right? So this is the D flat. Now we're going down to a C. And this is that exception, right? There's no half step or a sharp and a flat between a B and a C. So we're going to go from C down to B. Then you have B flat. A is your open third string. And so we're going down, so we're going to go down to the fourth string. The fifth fret is also an A. Down a half step is A flat, to a G flat, also known as an F sharp. All right, down to an F. And there's no sharp or flat between E and F, so it's going to go directly to E. All right, so get familiar with which direction you're moving. start at a higher note and move down 1/2 step at a time and identify what each of those notes are. And then start the opposite direction, start at a low note and move all the way up and identify those notes as well. All right? And so now that we've learned all the notes in music and how to tie them to the bass guitar, now we can actually start to play some music, all right? And so what I want to do for starters is I want to give you a basic demonstration using the song Lord, I Lift Your Name on High. And the basic chords for the start of that song are G, C, and D. Of course, you can change the key that you're playing in, but for this particular example, we're going to stick to the key of G, all right? Now, what you can do for starters, when you have a piece of sheet music and you're barely getting started, just worry about playing the note when it's supposed to be played, all right? You might be watching some bass videos, or you might have seen someone at a local church event, you know, or even at conference or whatnot, and just been wowed by how quickly they're moving through the bass guitar. Just hold on that part for now. What you want to do is we're starting at the very beginning, all right? So you have the song, Lord, I Lift Your Name on High. It's G, then C, up to a D. Some go back to a C, back to the G. It's kind of like walking up the stairs and walking back down the same stairs, okay? So if you're playing to the song, one of the things that's very critical with bass guitar is playing with rhythm. Put on a song, try to clap to it. That'll be your first indicator of how good your rhythm is if you can clap on beat. If not, you want to work on that first as well. But one of the things that can really help you is getting a metronome. You can download one on your phone. You can go to a local music store and buy one there. You can order one online if you wish. Tons of methods of obtaining a metronome. But it's very important, especially as a bass player, to play in time, to be able to hear time, okay? So all that being put together, we're going to play the song Lord, I Lift Your Name on High to a basic slow beat, if you will, or slow tempo, and just one note at a time. Here we go. So just for starters, you know, get familiar with that part first, all right? So once you've locked in playing a song just one time when the note is supposed to be played, you've already gotten the basics of bass guitar down, just being able to play the note. What you're doing is you're providing a bass foundation behind the music. But one of the things that makes bass really valuable is being able to play in time, as I mentioned before. And so what we're going to do to wrap up this video is we're going to play a little more of a complicated pattern in time with the note progression of G, C, D, C, G, okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to just play two notes, and we're going to use the walking motion that I demonstrated in the first bass lesson. We're going to play 2 plucks of each note, okay? So try it first, but eventually you want to be able to play those 2 plucks in time, all right? Now what you can do is you can, like I said, if you have a metronome, you can set the tempo to somewhere between 50 and 60 BPM. And that would be a good starting point. So basically each click should be a pluck, all right? And you want to make sure you move to the next note at the right time as well. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so I played the cycle 3 times there for you. But there you go. There's the basics next step that you will go through in getting familiar with the bass guitar, being able to play the right notes and in time. Start there. Now, we're wrapping up this video, but one of the things I want to encourage you to do is to get some sheet music. If you don't have many songs to practice with, you're welcome to go to WorldCFMMusic.com. you'll see under the Resources tab, you scroll down toward the bottom, you'll see the Conference Song Service. Click on that and you'll see downloadable PDF versions of all the conference songs. Pick an easy one, maybe 2 or 3 if you want to. And I do suggest going for the slow songs first and try to play this basic pattern, in time, 1 note at a time first. Just play the 1 note when it's supposed to be played. And once you get comfortable with that, of course, because you're trying to memorize notes up here as well. Once you get comfortable memorizing these notes, plucking, 1 note at a time, then try to move into a more steady pattern. If it's a slow song, set your metronome at, somewhere between 50 and 60 BPM, and then try to pluck with each click on that metronome. But be careful to move to the next note when it's supposed to be played, all right? So I hope that makes sense. I hope it's clear for you guys, and of course, I hope it's helpful. As always, you're welcome to reach out to me with any questions that you might have. You can reach out to me using the comments section below. You can also reach out to me at WorldCFMMusic@gmail.com, and I'll do my best to get you the best answer that I possibly can to your questions. Also, if you have any input, any of you bass players out there, you have any direction, any contributions you want to make to the information that's being given, I highly value it, and so you're always welcome to chime in. I'm open to any input and feedback. I appreciate it. But, I hope this helps you guys out. As I mentioned before, go and practice. Don't give up. Press in. You'll get it. You'll get it. And just believe God. If you're having a hard time, pray. There's nothing wrong with saying, God, I want to learn how to play this instrument to glorify you. I've done that before too, and God has helped me tremendously in the past. So there's nothing wrong with doing that as well. And of course, practice. You can't just pray and expect it to miraculously happen overnight. You want to practice. It's very important, and that's what will also get you there as well. Very, very important there. So, but thank you guys for watching. I greatly appreciate those of you who have supported this channel through the whole process, this whole time. I really appreciate it. Also, I want to say thank you to those of you who are spreading the information or spreading the word about this channel, trying to help especially pioneer churches throughout our fellowship in starting or building their song service, and want to continue to spread the word as much as possible. But we will have another bass video coming up here pretty soon, along with some other material, some other content that'll hopefully help you guys out. You're welcome to subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want to be notified of future videos. But in the meantime, we're going to bring this to a close. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.